You're listening to Cross Rhythms Plymouth 96.3 FM, and it's great to be joined in the studio once again by Mr. Paul Friend. Hi, Paul.
Hiya.
Great to have you here. We're going to talk about something different. Last time we talked about your book that you'd written, which you might want to mention if you want to in this interview, but we're not really talking about that primarily. We're talking about your work at SWYM. So you're director of SWYM, SWYM, South West Youth Ministries. We've talked a little bit about it before. For anyone who's a regular listener, you'll have heard Luke. Luke is with SWYM at the moment and kind of doing his sort of internship placement with us as well. But there'll be plenty of listeners thinking, I've never heard of this. So in your words, Paul, you've been there a long time. What is SWYM and who's it for?
So our vision is that every child and young person across the whole of the South West would encounter Jesus, come to know him and make a choice to live for more. So for us, it's all about reaching out to children, young people and families across the South West and giving them the opportunity to experience and come to know the person of Jesus and then to see their lives transformed as a result. So Amazing. That's what we're all about. So everything that we do kind of flows out of that vision. Yeah.
Amazing. So what does that look like? I know, when I was a young person in church life, kind of events coming together of churches in the sort of region as such. But yeah, what does that look like sort of through the year? And I know you've just done your annual report, so you've kind of looked back over last year.
Yeah. So we do lots of different things. There's a whole area that we do around training, but I guess the first bit is around events for children and young people, and we do kind of two ends really. One that's under the banner of Activate, which is about exploring faith through activity. Okay. So we run loads of kind of small scale camps, like we had one 10 days ago called Geek Factory, which is a 3-day camp for 11 to 16-year-olds to explore faith in Jesus in the midst of everything geeky. So everything from gaming to questing, board games, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So loads of, and we run similar ones like a football one based at Ivy Bridge just down the road in May half term. So loads of things like that, which are kind of for people just wondering about exploring faith. We do one big one, which is coming up called SWYM, which is at West Point near Exeter, where we had 2,500 8 to 17-year-olds. That, again, a great setting for churches to bring people who are exploring faith or who are already Christians but want to grow in their faith. Lots of different venues just for a weekend. So we get churches come from kind of Gloucester right down to Falmouth and everywhere in between. So a lot of that is really about helping people to explore what faith in Jesus looks like and what a relationship with God might look like for them. But then we do loads of stuff as well for those who are already Christians. We run a whole stream of stuff for young leaders under the banner of TAG, which is a conference in November every year, and then a mentoring 6-month process from January to July as well.
Yeah. Amazing. So busy. So a lot of things to kind of pull in there. Some of the things you mentioned there, the kind of Geek Factory, the football side of things, the spree. Am I right? That's under 18. That's kind of 18 and under. That's kind of teenage years primarily in that sense.
Yeah, totally. But what's interesting with spree is we do get a lot, because people come as a church group. And that obviously that can be people who are loosely connected with the church, and they come and bring a group of children or a group of young people. Although what we found quite often in the last few years is sometimes people have come as a family and the parents are there to help cook or whatever. So it can be a great setting. Over the last few years, we've had a few stories of dads coming along who weren't connected to church at all, but were vaguely interested. And then by the end of the weekend, we're like, wow, I need to take this more seriously. This has been an amazing experience. I'm going to start going to church and seeing what faith could look like for me. So it's a great context for all of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I suppose with all these things, in the specifics of, like, for example, the Geek Factory thing, there's potentially like breaking down barriers of what it might mean to be a Christian. I suppose potentially that's going back more generations than the present generation. There's a lot in this generation now of young people who maybe don't have any background knowledge of what it is to be Christian. But in the past, it was maybe, playing football, for example, or doing all the kind of fun, nerdy stuff, gaming, all that kind of thing, maybe is separate to faith. It doesn't really mix. But I know that's been a real key thing for SWYM for many years, is kind of showing that just great fun aspect of life, what it looks like to do great youth work, to have loads of fun with young people. Same at SWYM, loads of great activities, just the best time.
Yeah.
And in the context of that, exploring faith, that the two are combined, connected, and not separate.
Absolutely, and they should come together, because the danger is you take a group of people away and try and create a separate little Christian subculture.
Sure.
Instead of going, actually, God is interested in every facet of our lives,
Yes.
and actually is so creative that as we create in those different, using gaming and football as examples, like there's loads of great things that we can pull out of those that relate to the gospel and relate to faith. So we love to bring the gospel right into the middle of the activity, whether that's hanging off an abseiling wall and talking about trust, or whether that's in the middle of a football game and talking about justice, like whatever it looks like, kind of bringing faith right into the middle of the activity, rather than it being kind of separate and private to normal life.
And the fact that, as you said there at the start, God's right in the mix of all that stuff, like wants us to have a great time. Jesus came to bring us life to the full. So that kind of fullness of expression of life, of also togetherness, like lots of different kids from different areas coming together, that kind of speaks against certain things in society where there's loneliness, there's isolation, that kind of coming together, all of those things without the kind of explicit discussion of faith. There's something of faith in that. There's something of God in just the joy that's happening in those activities, isn't there?
Totally. And I think what we're discovering at the moment is that this generation alpha that's kind of growing up now, those that are kind of under 12, 13 at this point, we're just seeing an incredible openness actually to things of faith, because they haven't got baggage of church stuff from previous generations, but also there's a genuine sense of there's being something transcendent, something out there. Not with every young person, but certainly we're seeing a shift. And we've had some great stories in the last few months of young people just rocking up at a church, like not knowing a soul. A couple of young people down in Cornwall who rocked up at a church and got chatting to our trainee who was working at the church, they basically said they'd been watching some videos on TikTok about faith and felt really convicted, and so basically said that they'd become Christians and thought they should probably go to church.
Wow.
So, I think there is a real openness in this generation that is exciting, even though there's challenges around church right now, and we can listen to all the negative stories, but actually there is a real openness in this generation, which is exciting. Yeah,
definitely. There's a story I like from a friend of mine who's a youth worker, and she had a young person in her group, and he was well into Marvel and superheroes and all that kind of stuff, probably about 12-ish, I guess, 12, 13. And he'd never heard Jesus, and so she'd just go through stories of Jesus, and he suddenly, very soon, became this kid's favourite superhero. And he was telling all his friends at school all about Jesus as if he was sort of a Marvel character. So it's great. But yeah, that's brilliant. So if you're in that situation, I suppose, listening to this, where for whatever reason you've tuned into Cross Rhythms, you like listening to us, and you're thinking, yeah, actually, I've found an interest in faith, a deepening interest in Christian faith, and want to explore it more. SWYM is a great place to do that. Maybe if you're a young person listening to this, or an older person, we'll come on to that in a minute, but we'll go into some of the specifics of some of those events, kind of where you can find out more about SWYM, where you can find out more about these events right after this. We'll talk more with Paul after this track. You're listening to Cross Rhythms Plymouth. I'm in conversation with Paul Friend, director of SWYM, South West Youth Ministries. We talked in kind of big terms, big picture, what SWYM is, who it's for, kind of some of the things you do, which there's a lot of things you do, evidently. How can people find out more? Let's start with young people then, sort of under 18 and under, or sort of parents of young people, if they're listening and do you know what, that like Geek Factory event sounds great, the football side of things sounds great, or SWYM coming up sounds really good. Where can people go to find out more?
The best place to go is go check out the website. Okay. So you can just go to www.swym.org.uk. There is a SWYM site that's actually part of that, but if you do www.sprysw.org, that will take you straight to the SWYM site, which has got a video so you can see it and imagine it, and a program and all sorts of stuff to explore. So check it out on there. You can book online. The only thing with SWYM is you have to book with a group. So chat to your church or a church that you're connected with. If they're not initially going to Spree, try and persuade them to. We'd love them to join us.
Do a sales pitch.
So yeah, but the website's the best place to go.
Great. And so, just for people listening now, that like the setup of Spree, we talked about it in sort of general terms, but like the mechanics of it, how long is it, when is it, all those.
So it's the last weekend of June.
Right.
So it's before school holidays, but after exams and all of that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in that little bit of downtime before the end of term.
Cool.
Which is great. So it's Friday night till Sunday afternoon. At West Point. So people come in a group. The churches can come and set up anytime on the Friday. So they tend to come and build a little base camp and they sort their own food. We do have food vans and cafes and stuff on site, but most of the churches just bring a little team to do the cooking. Cool. And then there's more activities than the young people could possibly ever do. Right. So we have a fairground area with like 4 different rides.
Wow.
There's sports galore, from skateboarding to climbing walls, football tournament. There's a gaming zone, craft zone, loads of different workshops, silent disco, Spree's Got Talent. There's more than you can possibly imagine. It's all on the website.
Yes.
So you can go and check out and see a program. And what's great is we try and camp like groups near where they live. So there's usually a Plymouth church's campsite where people can connect with other people from their area as well over the weekend too.
Great. And so I suppose then there's sort of 2 sides to it. One, obviously, it's the main focus of it. It's a great place to discover more about Jesus, find out more about faith. But also, if there's young people in the group who just want to go and have a great weekend, it sounds like there's plenty there for them as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
So when it comes to like cost and things like that, obviously you'd say there's more information on the website, but how does that side of it work?
So basically we have an early bird price, which finishes at the end of this month. So at the end of March, it goes up a tenner. So you really want to get booked in before we hit into April. Sure. So at the moment, it's at £80. It goes up to £90 after that point. Yeah. So it really is worth taking advantage of the early bird. Most churches will add on some cost for food and transport, but if there's anyone out there who would immediately go, well, there's no way I can afford that, most churches offer some kind of bursary scheme to enable people to go if they want to go. So chat to your local church and see if there's a way that you can get there.
Brilliant. That's absolutely perfect. So we're going to stop for some more music now and pick up the conversation with Paul, because there's other things that SWYM do. Luke, who is on the station here, is a case in point, kind of like the post-18, the sort of training, I suppose going deeper, maybe taking it a bit more in depth over a longer period of time in terms of looking at faith and different courses that SWYM do. So we'll talk a bit more about that right after this. You're listening to Cross Rhythms Plymouth, final part of a conversation with Paul Friend, who, amongst other things, is the director of SWYM. And we've talked about what SWYM is for sort of under 18, South West Youth Ministries. So obviously the clue's in the name in many ways. It's kind of a ministry for young people primarily. And as you said, the vision is to kind of give young people across the Southwest an opportunity to get to know Jesus, to find out more about him and to live for more. And there's kind of another aspect, which is sort of courses that you do sort of post 18, and there's a lot of those, and there's kind of varied different focuses. So tell us in broad strokes, what are those options and who are they for?
So really, it's all about training and equipping people to reach out to children and young people, but with a focus on kind of spiritual formation and looking at how can we grow in our personal discipleship and relationship with Jesus. Mm-hmm. So we run something called Be Transformed, which is a year course. The exciting thing about that one is it's a great start point for people, whether some people do it as a gap year at 18, 19. We've got people in their 40s and 50s doing it at the moment. Really? As a kind of change of vocation, exploring, working with children and young people. The focus of it is personal discipleship and really hands-on youth and children's work skills. And it's a great year to grow in God, but also explore if youth and children's ministry is for you. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, this coming September, we're launching a new stream of that, which is for worship leaders.
Okay.
So any young adults or people of any age who are keen in terms of growing in worship leading, alongside serving with children and young people.
Yes.
Then we're launching with 4 spaces for that. So if anyone out there is interested in that, then we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
But then a lot of people after that first year, they can either stay on for a second year, and we have something called the Academy, which is a leadership focused year. Both of those courses carry a level 3 qualification with it.
Right.
Or they can then step into the degree. So we're linked to Moorlands College down at Christchurch near Bournemouth.
Yep.
And we offer a BA honours in applied theology and another one which is with youth and community work, which has got a National Youth Agency accredited qualification. So yeah, a real range of courses that are really all about growing people in their faith, but enabling them to reach out and work with local churches across the South West to reach children and young people.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So as you said, there's a real kind of two-pronged to it. So the focus is reaching young people. So SWYM do that, and then SWYM train people to do that as well. So there's a kind of like sending out of people and giving them the best training possible to do that. And then I love that there is that aspect as well of just really developing your own faith alongside that. It's about those people not just becoming, I suppose, tools to reach other people, but they're whole people themselves. They need to find Jesus more for themselves and take that journey themselves with God and kind of further their faith. And so, as you said, like you touched on it there, there's no sort of age.
No, we literally have people of all age. We have got someone actually that we're talking to at the moment who's just retiring at 60.
Wow.
And she has been in nursing and basically said, I'm retiring and I feel like God's calling me to get involved with young people.
Wow.
I haven't used student finance. I might do the degree and use it because I'll never pay it back because I'm 60. What do you think ethically about that? It's a different thing. But so we get people of all ages and all stages of life. So it's not just, probably our predominant age is 18 to 30, but we have people of all ages. And, the thing I think's just really key is, I remember someone saying to me, you can only take people as far as you've been yourself. And so I think that's why we're so invested in, actually, we want to become more like Jesus so that people see Jesus in us. And so, yes, we want to train people professionally to be really skilled and professional in the work that they're doing with children and young people. But if they're not walking closely with Jesus and aren't becoming more like him, then we're just delivering a service. But we want to see transformation in people's lives. So to do that, we have to go after the spiritual formation piece.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's so good. And you touched on it off air. You get a lot of the courses kind of run around obviously the academic year, and in which there's sort of conference weeks where you kind of gather. Lee Abbey primarily, isn't it, in terms of location, and you have a mixture of yourself and SWYM team delivering some of the lessons, lectures, that kind of stuff, but also lots of visiting speakers on a whole range of subjects, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were up at Lee Abbey last week. We're there for 6 4-day conferences every year. And, just as an example, last week, we, some of our year 3 degree guys had a day on working with children and young people with additional needs with a national expert on that called Mark Arnold. They also had a couple of days on grief and loss and working with children and young people who've maybe been bereaved or gone through divorce and are trying to process that, and how we support and work with them through that, as well as our gap yearers were looking at the character and the father heart of God for a couple of days, looking at leadership. Had some looking at end times theology in their theology degree. So there's a bit of everything going on across the site as people go through the journey. But for us, it's about equipping them both for their own faith and walk, but also to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah. Great. And just to kind of round it off, I suppose, the heart and the focus of those people taking on those courses, having a heart for young people, for children, for children's ministries is key. But that can look quite diverse, can't it, in terms of the way that's delivered. So you might be listening to this and thinking, like, I don't know if I have that traditional focus of what I've seen youth work and ministry work to be. But actually, the more you think about it, you're like, yeah, I do have a heart for young people finding Jesus.
Totally.
Like, have a conversation, isn't it? Because the outworking of that is changing as the times are changing.
Yeah, totally. Often we think of it in a traditional, youth club, 30 kids running around. I couldn't do that.
Sure.
But more and more these days, it's much more about small group stuff, mentoring, lots of different things, and a variety of different churches that we work with. But even right now, we've got placements where they're working more in schools, running lots of kind of lunchtime stuff, after school stuff, speaking into RE lessons. We're working with a couple of the Christian outdoor centres like Heatery and Lee Abbey, where people can be involved with school groups coming and getting trained up to do outdoor ed stuff. Music, worship, media. There's a whole range of different ways. So whatever your skill set is or whatever you're passionate about, if you've got some kind of heart for children and young people and you want to grow in Jesus, then there's probably a context that would be a great fit for you.
Amazing. And we're going to point people towards the website again. So can you give that out just one more time in terms of the website address for people to go to?
www.swym, which is swym.org.uk.
Awesome. Brilliant. Well, Paul, thank you so much, and wish you all the best, and see you soon.